glamorous Jack Smith of Real Talk Movie Reviews. We've just entered 2020 and I want to begin this year by reviewing James Horner's score for 48 Hours. Released in 1982, this Walter Hill film stars Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy, Brian James, David Patrick Kelly, James Remar and Sonny Landham. It was a breakout role for Murphy, who along with Nolte made quite the buddy team. So regarding Horner's score, there's an oddly Caribbean flavour to the proceedings, and one can detect this in the main title, which I've always found to be rather iconic. Horner was streetwise in his approach to 48 Hours, and that suited the material right down to the ground. He alternates between electronics, percussion and a very jazz-infused aesthetic. Now, your preference or lack thereof for this, because notes tend to barely contain themselves nor follow each other in syncopated or rhythmic compliance, will depend largely upon whether you like jazz or not. As for myself, I found it okay. It wasn't very long, and in fact under 30 minutes, and that allowed Horner to get the job done quickly. The songs featured in the film, such as The Boys Are Back in Town, were highlights. So Horner's score could be said to have fulfilled something of a secondary function within the overall narrative. I've always found it to be a particularly effective score, at least in context. Taken out, certain things do stand out like a sore thumb. Some of the music could even belong to a John Carpenter or a horror film. Moving on, there are certain motifs, such as when Nick Nolte's character leaves his girlfriend's apartment and the subway station, which has this very jazz, pure jazz feel, which on album can seem a little bit grandiose. In the film it works quite fine, delivering suspense and action and the payoff quite effectively. Elsewhere, Horner doesn't attempt to really distinguish any of the characters. His interest concentrates mostly on San Francisco, where the action takes place, the prison break at the beginning and the ensuing manhunt. Now, the Caribbean flavours do kind of draw attention to themselves as well, and there's even a moment in the final cue, the alley, which reminded me of the helicopter theme from Jerry Goldsmith's Capricorn 1, something I've always been quite fond of in that score. So while Horner was at the very early stages in his career working on 48 Hours, he'd also done Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which some consider his best score. He was very much in the experimental stage. He hadn't yet found his voice, but he made an impression. And I would say 48 Hours, it's worth seeking out as a glimpse into the beginning development of a film composer and how that can manifest ideas, musical or otherwise, which, while not prevalent later on necessarily, give an indication of just what talent there was at work. Would I have 48 Hours by James Horner in my collection? Probably not, but I enjoyed it in the film, and I have to say that the 30 odd minutes, roughly just under that, which the score runs, moved along rather rapidly, and I was quite pleased at that. Any longer and I think it just would have overstayed its welcome. So, I give 48 Hours by James Horner 3 out of 5 stars. This week's mini reviews. The Cider House Rules by Rachel Portman. It's like the clouds parted and a hand came down from the heavens and pointed at Rachel Portman and gave her this once in a lifetime great theme, and it does play extremely well both in the film and on album. The theme anchors the score. As for whether or not I would keep this soundtrack or listen to it on a regular basis, that remains a question mark. However, Portman has done very well, and I highly recommend this beautiful soundtrack. 4 out of 5 stars. Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow by Edward Shearmur. The expanded La La Land Records release of Shearmur's score doesn't really offer much that the original soundtrack contained. In fact, I found it rather bloated and unnecessary. Great themes, stirring action music, a quite romantic subplot, and incidental majesty lend this score durability. 4 out of 5 stars. For more film and soundtrack reviews, please visit Betty Jo Tucker's website, Real Talk Movie Reviews. On Facebook, you'll find my pages, Hip-Notic Movie Reviews and Hip-Notic Soundtrack Reviews. I am Richard Jack Smith. If you like the video, maybe subscribe or leave a like, and I will see you in the next one.